Good morning and welcome to this session on Chapter 3, Production and Cost. Economics is always about understanding the cost factor. Why? Because every single production that happens in our country, that happens in this world, has some or the other cost factor involved with it. So the word itself, production and cost, they are made for each other. If you want to produce something, there is a cost involved in it. So for every firm in this world, there is some cost and there are some factors that determine the production capability altogether. So in this chapter, we are going to learn about the concepts of production and cost. Now this chapter is quite interesting. Why? Because we are going to take ourselves as an example. Each one of us in this class are going to become an entrepreneur, trying to understand an industry, and we are going to build our own industrial empire using the production concept. So moving forward, what are the basic concepts of production? Now, when you start a firm, let's say for example, we are going to start with a chocolate manufacturing industry. Most of us like chocolate, and this is being a universal food. So we are going to start with a chocolate manufacturing industry. The moment when we think about an idea that we are going to start building an industry altogether, there are a lot of factors that will start coming into our mind. The first three factors that any entrepreneur will get in the form of economics is cost of production, revenue, and profit. Now, what are these terms meaning to us? Cost of production. To produce something, there is a cost that is involved. Now, for example, to manufacture a chocolate, that might be a 1 rupee chocolate or a 100 rupees chocolate. But there is a cost that is involved with that chocolate. Now, where is that cost coming from? It might be in the form of raw material, it might be in the form of labor, it might be in the form of capital, but yes, there is a cost that is involved in the production of the chocolate. So, the cost of production basically tries to understand and make us go deep in terms of understanding that there is a factor that is involved with every single production. And this is true for every industry, whether you are from a car making industry, from a chemicals, from a nut and bolt, or from a chocolate, or from any other kind of manufacturing industry you are, there is a cost of production that is involved. Second factor, revenue. This is a new word for us. What do you mean by revenue? Probably this word you might have studied or understood from an accounting concept. Now, when we come down to economics, what does revenue mean to us? Revenue means to us just the income. But this is not the true income. This is the income that is received before the expenditure is taken into account. So revenue is nothing but the sales that has taken place, and we have received some income because of it. Now, when we started the chocolate manufacturing industry, we started to understand that we have to produce an X quantity of chocolate every month so that we can improve on our sales on an year end. So let's say that every month we are going to produce 10,000 chocolates. Now, once we start producing 10,000 chocolates, all the chocolates will be packed and they will be sent to the market. Once all the 10,000 chocolates are sold in the market, the company will receive income. The company will receive the money after the sales. That part of the sales is converted as revenue for us. So revenue is that basic income. Leaving the expenditure apart, revenue is the basic income that you are going to get after sales. Now, from the revenue, we are going to understand the word profit. Why? After you start understanding the word revenue, the most important word for any entrepreneur in this world is profit. If anybody asks you this question, why did you start an industry? Why did you start a business? The answer for it is in one simple word, and that word is profit. We start an industry or we do a business for profit purpose. So how do we arrive at this profit? Revenue minus expenditure. All the expenditure, it includes sales, it includes your variable factors, it includes all your infrastructural costs, all the expenditure. When you subtract it, the net income that is received by the company is known as profit. So profit is the final stage of realization for any industry, because profit is not going to come at the first level itself. Profit is going to be the one which you are going to see after the deduction of all expenditures, and then finally you are going to realize that this is what I have earned at the year end. So profit is the most crucial factor for any part of production. So going with a quick recap, we have learned three factors here. What is the first factor? Cost of production. The second factor is revenue. The third factor is profit. Cost of production means the cost involved in producing something or manufacturing a product. The second one is revenue. Revenue will represent the income excluding the expenditure. What is profit? After the deduction of all expenditure, the net income that is received by the company or by the industry is known as profit. Now, moving forward, we are going to understand production function. Now, before we start getting into production function and start understanding the terminologies, what is a function altogether? Why do we use this word function in economics? You could have just told me, sir, production formula. But why am I using the terminology function? Because everything in economics has a relationship. We are not just going to put a formula and say that A is equal to B. Why is A equal to B? That means there is a relationship. There are variables, and the variables are related to each other under a particular circumstances. So that is why we use this word production function. So production function means that there is a relationship between two variables, and that variable is going to decide your production capacity, your production output altogether. So what are those factors? Now, if you look into the production function, we have the formula Q is equal to KL. So what is the formula? I'm going to write it here. Q is equal to K into L. What does K stand for? K stands for capital. Now you might ask me, sir, the word capital starts with C. So where does the letter K come from? Because it is a Latin terminology, it is represented as K. In Latin, capital is represented as K-A-P-T-I-L. So that is why we are using the terminology or the letter K. So here the production function is represented by the formula Q is equal to K into L. So your quantity output is equal to capital, K for capital, and L stands for labor hours. So that means the quantity is decided on the capital that is included, that is invested into the man hours, that is the labor hours that is put for producing that particular product. So the production function is a very simple function that is going to tell you about how are we achieving a relationship here. The relationship here is capital and labor. So when you multiply the capital into the man hours, that is the labor hours, you will be able to get the output quantity Q. So the production function, let me define it one more time. Quantity Q is equal to K into L, capital into labor hours. Moving forward, now we are going to talk about a very important concept called as ISOQUANT. What is this ISOQUANT all about? We started this class with a thought process saying that we are all entrepreneurs. And as all entrepreneurs aspire and desire that we should make the maximum use of talent, we should use the maximum brain in terms of getting out the best output possible. Similarly, in economics, we have certain terminologies, we have certain ideologies through which we can attain the maximum output. But to attain this maximum output, there are certain factors that we have to keep in our mind. What are those factors? Land, labor, and capital. These are the three factors that is always interesting, important, and included when it comes to any kind of production. So coming back here to ISOQUANT, it is the set of all possible combination of two inputs that yield the same maximum possible level of output. Now I'm going to split this sentence, I'm going to split those words and make it easier for you to understand. So first let us start understanding each and every word. Possible combination, which means which is feasible. Not everything is feasible. We might have hundreds of ideas in our mind. Sir, can we put this? Can we put that? But then when it comes to production, there are only certain factors that are possible to combine. So the word possible combination, which means feasibility included. Now, the next word, two inputs. So we are going to take two factors. It might be land and labor, capital and labor, land and capital. So we are going to take two factors into the account that yield the same maximum. Now the word yield and maximum, that's very, very important. The concept of production lies in producing goods. So how much are you producing will be the next question. If we are running this chocolate industry, tomorrow the market will ask us the question, sir, how many chocolates do you produce in a year? So that is a quantitative reply that we have to give. So we will say that, sir, we are producing 5 lakh chocolates in 1 year. Will you be able to keep on producing the same 5 lakh quantity for which I need to answer the same maximum? So the same 5 lakh quantity can be produced at every level of output. So that means at every time possibly we can produce that 5 lakh provided we have a feasible combination of two inputs. It might be land or labor, capital or land and capital all together. So at any given point of time when we are using those possible combination that can give us the maximum output, we term that as ISOQUANT. So ISOQUANT is nothing but the shortcut, the formula, the methodology by which we can achieve the maximum output at every possible level as far as going in terms of manufacturing. Now, each ISOQUANT represents a particular level of output. This is very, very important for us to understand. Every ISOQUANT, whenever you draw that graph, we will be seeing the ISOQUANT graph in the next slide. But before that, when we talk about this ISOQUANT itself, every ISOQUANT at a particular level will show an output. So for the month of March, you will have an output. For the month of April, one output. For the month of June, you will have an output. So every month, there will be a particular level of output. But in all these months, you have used the possible combination. You have played with land and labor. You have played with capital. You have tried to put the best combination possible so that you get a desired level of output for that particular month. So what ISOQUANT will try to tell us, will try to teach us is that every month when you are changing the input factors and trying to place a new combination, but the output will try to reach the maximum level as far as possible. It is labeled with the amount of output. So this is where I always tell you in economics, the most important factor is the quantitative analysis. We will come to the qualitative later. Now, as an entrepreneur, people might ask you, what is the brand? How is the brand? What is the perception of your brand? All those factors are later for us in economics. What is more important for us in economics is how much are you producing? If you are producing 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 10 lakhs, how much is that you are producing? Because the production capability is directly equal to your sales. In economics, we believe that numbers drive the system. So more the numbers, that means your presence in the market is also on the higher side. So always we are worried about the word called as output and the amount of output. There are two words here. Again, I want you to pay attention here. Why? Because amount of output and just the output. Every industry will manufacture. Sir, I will manufacture 1,000, 2,000 or 3,000. But then the amount of output depends not just on you. It depends on the maximum possibility that you can do. If there are 100 chocolate manufacturing companies in this country, which means to say that not all the 100 companies will be manufacturing the same level of output. So when people are going to measure your industry, when they are going to benchmark your industry in comparison to the other industries, they want to know the amount of output. So if your amount of output is higher when compared to the other people in the industry, that means automatically you would stand as a manufacturing leader. So that's why the concept of ISOQUANT will heavily focus upon the point on the output factor. So more the output, the better we are in terms of manufacturing altogether. Now moving forward, we are going to talk about the graph. The moment we discuss about the graph in economics, it is very, very important for us to understand why a graph is being drawn. Now for all of us, we look at graph as a numerical aspect. But let me tell you, in economics, graph is not a numerical aspect. It is a theoretical concept expressed in the form of numbers. So when you draw a graph, you need to understand what are the factors that you are going to take into the graph and draw it with your understanding. Now let's go ahead and try to understand this graph altogether. On the x-axis, I will be taking the factor called as labor, and on the y-axis, we are taking capital K. So let me repeat again. We have a graph here. In this graph, we have x-axis and y-axis. On the x-axis, we have taken labor, and on the y-axis, we are going to take capital K. So we have taken both factors now. Now what are we going to see in this graph is that, as we have told in ISOQUANT, theoretically when we define, we are taking two factors, two possible combinations. So what are the two possible combinations? Capital and labor. So we have taken two possible combinations. That two possible combination, what is the yield that we are getting out of it? So we will see that at the first level, if you have taken a number, say capital value as 2 and labor value as 1, you will immediately get one output. Now in the second factor, capital value is 2 by 3 and labor value is 1, again you will get one output. In the third combination, capital value is 1 by 3, labor value is 1, you will get one more combination. So what are we trying to do in this graph is that trying to change the values of a factor like capital or labor and trying to draw a graph which will measure the output, that is Q1, quantity Q1 at different levels altogether. What is the most important factor is that isoquants are convex to the origin. So whenever you are getting that output, you will see that the graph line, the output line is descending from the top left hand corner to the bottom right hand corner. So it is always convex to the origin. That is what is very important for us in this graph. So again, I would like to repeat in the terms of making you understand how to draw the graph. All you have to do is that you have to first draw two lines, the x-axis and y-axis. On the x-axis, please take labor. On the y-axis, take capital. Now you have to start plotting the values of x and y. So you need to give some values for that two factors, namely capital and labor. You can give any values. Now let's say that we give the value 2 for capital, 1 for labor. In the next one, you are again changing the values, 2 by 3, 1. The next phase, it is 1 by 3 and 1. Now what happens for each and every level, you will be getting one output. You will mark the corresponding output on the graph and you will draw a line, a curve that will represent your total output, that is your total quantity produced. Always you need to keep in mind, isoquants are convex to the origin. So that means you will get a graph that is floating downwards from the top left hand corner to the bottom right hand corner. So that is how you have achieved your isoquant graph altogether. With this, we come to the conclusion of today's session. In the next session, we shall start looking about the short run cost and the long run cost altogether. Thank you for joining me today on this session. Hope this session was interesting and useful. Any doubts, any question, please feel free to reach me. In the next session, we shall start again with short run cost and long run cost and what are the production concepts that are going to come in this particular chapter. Thank you once again. Have a great day.